Hey guys, it's Jason from GameRave.com, and this is GameRave TV. So yeah, wasn't expecting that big of a response to episode 4, and just wanted to say, first off, thank you to everyone. It doesn't matter if you're pro, anti, neutral, Autobot, Decepticon, Stark, whatever. Conversations and reactions like that don't come that often, and they were everywhere. It was really, really cool to just check out all the debates and arguments and friendly banter going on all the different websites and chat forums, etc. To start this follow-up video, I wanted to make one a correction and then two a relabeling, so to speak. Number one, annotations on YouTube don't show up on portable devices like iPhones, tablets, etc. So for the 20 more people who will eventually email me, we do know about the screw up with the Soul Calibur 2 image that showed it being compared to a Soul Calibur 3. However, after getting the first alert, we went back to eBay and researched, and sure enough, we found ungraded copies selling for more, and even funnier, selling for more than what the Soul Calibur 3s were going for, so no need to correct. But thank you for the input anyway. Two, one of the bigger problems that seemed to be coming up in a lot of the forums was my use of the word pyramid scheme. The problem with using the term pyramid scheme wasn't so much by definition of it, it was the application of it. VGA has a lot of problems with it, but it's important to realize that these problems differ based on how you're using them. So I wanted to use this follow-up video to better explain how, depending on what you're going in and expecting, why it is useless and pointless. After that's all said and done, I get to actually defend the VGA from one of its own supporters who unintentionally insulted them and specifically insulted a customer of theirs. And I wanted to take that time to tear apart that statement and show, why it was wrong. From that, I figured for those that do appreciate the service, blindly or otherwise, how their service can be improved so that those who do like it can see where their flaws are and they can improve upon it. Criticism is nothing without advice and suggestions on how to change it for the better. So what the hell? Let's play both sides. The first category we're going to deal with as far as customers go is the personal collector. And by personal collector, I mean someone who is going to buy an item and regardless of what they do with it, not sell it off. You're not a reseller. You're not going to buy it and love it and have it sit on your shelf for say 5 years, a month, whatever, and then sell it off to someone else. No, you're going to have that item for a while. The reason the VGA graded case scenario doesn't work for you guys is as follows. One, you can buy slide cases from their store for roughly anywhere between $8 to $10 cheaper than their graded product. You can save yourself money right there because in all reality, their grade is an opinion. It even says so in their FAQ. It's just an opinion. Now, I've given opinions and are asked for my opinion all the time, and I don't charge $30 a pop for it. Two, there seems to be a misconception, especially with some of the auctions I saw. The graded cases aren't UV protected by default. They're barely protecting. In order to have a 99% UV coated case, you have to pay extra for that. And that's important, especially with people who are grading prototype cartridges that have the EPROMs in them. And I have an opinion on one of those people later on, but that's for later. Two, it's the sticker. I'm sorry. It's the ugliest, dumbest sticker I've ever seen. It looks like a 5-year-old created it. It would be better if you could have the case without the sticker and actually be presented the actual item. Who gives a care that some random dude in Georgia was like, oh, this looks like a pretty good shrink wrap job, we'll do it 90 plus. No one cares. There was also an incident with, actually before I even did this video, and you had any intention to do this video, where a Game Rave reader had bought and supposedly spent $7,500 on a sealed Resident Evil 1, thinking it was the launch day version, but in reality it was the jewel case, later release of it. This thought didn't occur to me until I actually talked to him and emailed him back. For people that are buying VGA graded games to keep as a collection and never sell, for you, think about this for a moment. If you see a game, let's say, I don't know, Resident Evil, and it's on eBay graded by a seller for $15,000, and you decide to try and, best offer him down to half price of $7,500. Before you do that, go back to eBay and search for new ungraded games. Now, Resident Evil will be a bit harder to find just because it's such an older game, but in other instances, like Metal Gear, Final Fantasy VII, which had 9 jillion printing, so it can't be a rare game, it's cheaper for you to buy multiple copies ungraded yourself, get them, ship them to VGA to be graded, and then get them back and figure out which one is the best, and then just sell off the rest for your cost. You could buy at least 25 copies of a game for $7,500 and grade them, plus all the shipping, and still have money left over for a week's worth of Slurpees. It's pointless. And finally, as far as the collector goes, the Metal Gear Solid bundle wasn't just a once-in-a-time incident. It wasn't chance. Accidents happen. Now, yes, it was the VGA's fault that it was improperly boxed. And I'll get to that later. But more importantly, mistakes are being made on the actual items being graded. The best example that was sent in to me by a YouTuber was the Pokemon box. For those that don't know, Pokemon box was this really neat little kit sold through Nintendo, I believe just in their New York store and possibly online, where you got a GameCube case with the disc and a custom blue memory card inside a bigger cardboard box that had a couple extra documentation pieces, and then the transfer cable from the, I believe it was the GameCube to the GBA cord. In researching and Googling and eBaying and all this fun stuff, I found 3 Pokemon boxes that were graded, including one from a kid who was way too happy to have it graded. The problem was the child's version and a second version weren't complete. They were just the inner game case sealed, and the VGA graded them as complete, not qualified, actual sealed games. One was a 90 and one was, I think, 85 something. That's an incomplete game, and it's being passed off as complete. The big problem about being an opinion giver, aka an authority grader, is that you need to know what the fuck you're grading. And these people who lost $35 or more graded, well, I shouldn't say they didn't, they paid for it thinking, it was a complete copy, but if they were to try and sell that to someone and they don't realize it's an incomplete copy, that's terrible. That's a complete waste of money. So basically, long story short, for collectors, just buy the blank cases from CGA and save yourself $30 on grading costs. They're both going to have a hole in it for air, so why bother? That said, we move on to the reseller. Okay, now the resellers. And by definition, the reseller flipper is someone who purposely goes out, tracks down a complete game or qualified, wherever the fuck you want, and sends it to the VGA for the sole purpose of having it graded so they can get it back and throw it on eBay or a forum and sell them for whatever price they put on there. Here's where your guys' problem comes in. One, just the act of grading it, even just the act of paying for the case to put it in, is automatically artificially inflating the price. That stands no matter what. Two, you're paying for an opinion. As I said before, that's even VGA says it's just their opinion. To try and sell that person's opinion. Here's the thing. If you go to their VGA's website, in their FAQ, and I didn't catch this the first time, and I feel like an idiot for it, their entire FAQ on the VGA side is basically a copy and paste from their action figure side. And this is proven by them forgetting to change the word figure and action figures to video games. In fact, one of their links that in the FAQ specifically asks what the percentage what is the percentage of grades per figure, meaning how many of this type of grade per item is there. If you click the link, it doesn't go anywhere. And the reason it doesn't go anywhere is because if you click the full version of the FAQ, there's no link to link to. They never actually had a response to that yet, simply because they probably didn't update it since when they first made the website. More on that later on too. Now, because I had to know that particular question, I went to eBay. And for an hour, I sat here and researched and skimmed all 2,000 fucking auctions of VGA graded items and VGA cords because I couldn't separate it right. Good name, by the way. The absolute, out of 2,000 auctions, the absolute majority, and I mean like, no pun and no joke, 80 to 90%, which is ironic from what I'm about to say, the absolute positive majority of games on eBay graded by the VGA all fell in the 80 to 90 category. The absolute, like, cream of the crop, 90 plus and higher, or 79 and lower, were far, far and few between. So if you're going to be charged $30 for someone's opinion to tell you what your game looks like to them, and you know that 1,500 or more out of 2,000 auctions are 80 to 90, you don't need their opinion. Their opinion is that most games fall between the 80 and 90 category. So instead of having to ship your game out and, chance the damage or, something bad happened to it, you can just put your bleeping item on eBay, ungraded, and just say would fall in line with the 80 to 90 value on VGAgrader.com. Save yourself $30 on your profit. 3. The potential for damage, as clearly shown by the Metal Gear Solid bundle, which was a sealed game and not a qualified open game, exists. We also got word from another person who had similar problems, not in the shipping, but in the actual grading. Unfortunately, they couldn't provide us pictures in time for this video, but apparently in their description, when the game was being slid into the case, part of the shrink wrap got caught, just like the strategy guide in the Metal Gear bundle on the back, and was slightly torn and caught, which meant it wasn't graded in the condition it was sent in. And I didn't get a chance to follow up with him because of personal family matters. But like I said, accidents happen. Why would you risk that chance? Not even just something getting lost in the mail, the misgrade, the improper boxing of it, and so forth. Just cut out the middleman. Frickin' sell the game. Who cares about someone's opinion? Lastly, like I showed in the first video, the actual sales of the games that are actually sold for a high profit amount, and I mean like more than $10, are far and few between. The majority of sales are either below the cost of grading or practically breaking even. Why spend the money and time? Just sell the frickin' game. Alright, now the investors. These are the guys who are buying product who, for, I'm assuming, to keep graded and in hiding and then intend... Are you kidding me? Seriously? You know what? Screw you guys. No, I'm done. We're moving on to the next thing. All right. Before we get to the whole really interesting story that I found that may explain a few things with the VGA, and before I try and offer my advice for free, no $30 needed. All my lurking and pursuing and following up and reading of all the forum threads and Reddit threads and chat rooms and blah blah blah, there was a specific quote brought to me up to my attention by another reader, and when I first read it, I had to stop and reread it because I didn't believe something that stupid could be said. I'm going to post the quote in text here so you can read it yourself, but I'm going to read it out loud right now just to let it sink in. The exact quote is, "The Metal Gear Solid book damaged. The fault is largely on the customer asking for this kind of casing. That casing is totally awkward, and on the other hand, VGA cases has, there are the words, not mine, been proven to be good at preserving the condition of games in a quote-unquote normal casing. This particular example is totally marginal." First things first. I love that phrase. 14 years of retail in a management position, all 14 years, mom and pop, corporate, multiple companies, etc. There is no jury on earth that would believe the customer is at fault because the service provider could not provide the service they advertised. That is balls to the wall insane. That case was perfect for it. All they should have done, either forgotten or overlooked, was to simply add a bar to protect the weight of the guidebook. And we'll show in better quality what that problem was when I show the restoration video for it. I'm getting frustrated. This is not good. The bar they would have needed wouldn't have even been a specialty make. The stupid freaking bar that separates the normal games from their stupid price tag, that's all they would have needed. Glued to the top of the case so that it was basically letting the guidebook sit at, that's all that was needed. And it was an oversight, and there you go. Second, VGA cases have been proven to be good at preserving the condition of games at normal casing. This particular sentence, in all honesty, is fine, except it drives me nuts because according to the VGAs, and I can't remember their normal name, the collecting grading service, flat out states in their FAQ that the person doing the acrylic case making has like 16 plus years experience. Why and how would a person who has 16 years experience be unable to properly grade that particular case? That's like basically saying after 16 years he can only do squares. That's bullshit. As much as I hate the case, as much as I hate the act of casing, I have to admit the cases are gorgeous. It's actually rounded acrylic and everything. There is some beautiful work from a graphic designer standpoint that I can appreciate and applaud. As well, it's not a marginal item. In those 2,000 auctions I plowed through, I found VGA grades of those awkward Xbox controller with the Halo figure casings, which aren't square, and it was slabbed fine. There was also Nintendo controllers where they had to basically make custom enclosures and took the time to properly circle the cord. If that kind of care were applied to a controller, it should have been applied to that, and it wasn't. Not just the fact that they took the time to roll that cord, but I don't think people realize that the VGA is just a subsidiary of the CGA, the Collecting Grading Authority, I think it is. If you've taken a look at some of their loose figure grade slabs, they're freaking impressive. I think that Scarlet from G.I. Joe was just thrown up. They took the time to make sure there were pegs to hold her head in place and behind to make sure the figure stood straight. If that much care was used for a figure, then that much care could be used for a guidebook. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That should have been done. And we'll deal with that near the end of the video. Thirdly, the VGA has every right to reject or not grade and case a customer's item. They had every right to reject it and send it back and say, hey, nope, you can't do it, something might go wrong. But they didn't. They took the money and ran, and they're guilty of it. Plain and simple. Alright guys, this particular episode was taped over at least 4 or 5 days at different times and so forth, so some stuff might not match up here at the end. But I was originally going to do an honest advice for the VGA, as a customer, to help them help their actual, paying customers who love them, etc. However, one of the last few things I found while researching this follow-up video started ringing alarm bells, and I want to bring this up for everyone. I don't care if you're pro, anti, whatever. This is important from a consumer to business perspective. SunTrust did these webcasts about small businesses and handling different things and everything. They interviewed Tom Derby, who is the owner of CGA, i.e. the parent of VGA, in 2009, and that date is important. In the video, he discusses how business has been failing. I shouldn't say failing, more like slacking, and they had to have let people go and have the remaining people pick up the slack, himself included. And he admits that he's been there from midnight to 1 o'clock trying to keep up with everything. That's not a good sign, because that spells out overworked employees and higher stress levels. More importantly, the date of 2009 coincides with the IP registration within, I think it was 6 or 7 months, give or take, of the VGA arm of the CGA. In that video, Tom alludes to them exploring new options and new grading services to try and pick up the profit slack, i.e. they were losing money grading figures, let's try and grade something else. Cool, no problem, every business has to expand. If you take a look at that video and realize at the time that they were stretched thin already, if you fast forward 3 years and start looking at all the individual pieces and start assembling them together, you start getting a very worrisome picture. If you take into account that they're overworked and spread thin, and they have now expanded upon how much items they grade, how many items they grade and take in and so forth, that is a workload that is not going to go away anytime soon, much less be tackled in a quicker fashion. In the 2 weeks that I've had time to do the original video and this follow-up video, their website has been a complete mess. In fact, some of the stuff didn't even occur to me until I went back to research some more. First and foremost, it's pretty clear that the VGA side, having now looked back, is hastily assembled for a site. Their FAQ is literally just copy and pasted from the action figure side, and they didn't even finish, changing over words. The actual VGA FAQ alludes to action figures and figures when it should be video games they're talking about. 1 or 2 links don't even link to anything, including the previous mentioned percentile charts. 2, their invoice tracker is broken. You can't even track your packages or your items unless you contact them via email. That means someone who is at that building has to take time out of what they're already doing to answer all of these people's email contacts when it should be an automated system. Also, since I've started the first video, they've had this huge paragraph explaining that they're weeks behind doing things. That's especially important. If you're weeks behind on getting these, gradings and so forth done, that's not just a problem for the general consumer. That's a big problem for their paying members. They have membership options where you can pay certain, tiers up to $300. Don't even ask me why, to get expedited, grading services, discounts in the store, etc. That means the people who are paying for their membership to get these services are now being left in the dark and not getting what they paid for, and the general consumer is now further behind in the line while you're trying to take care of all the elite members. That means everyone's losing. In a more important angle, if you're so far behind yet still taking submissions, that means that all these that means all these items, be them rare, uber rare, dirt common, they're all sitting around at either the UPS pickup place or their actual establishment, which means there's a higher chance for accidents or misgrades, etc., while all these poor overworked people are trying to play catch up. Corners, when you're so far behind, and I mean this in a general way, people cut corners. You try and find ways to make everything go faster, and that leads to mistakes. And that can be costly mistakes, between a $55 grading service for a effed up strategy guide, or to a $35 mistake with the misgraded Pokemon boxes. And aside from one or two other issues that people actually personally mailed to me, I didn't have the time to see what other possible mistakes have been made. But they're out there. And as a consumer, that's not good. And I mean this from an actual pro VGA angle. If you guys are struggling that bad and can't play catch up, if you were to eventually fold, and this is a whole what if situation, if you were to fold, that would only be a bigger insult to the people that believe in you and use your service. Because if a grading service went out of business, that opinion of yours that people paid for that little happy sticker basically becomes null and void. How can you trust their opinion? They went out of business. They probably didn't know what they were talking about. So, all that said, the only advice I can give, and I mean this from a pro VGA standpoint, is that you guys just need to take a break and, stop taking submissions so you can play catch up and provide your happy, love you to death customers the service they're paying for, and B, properly create a site that actually looks like an authority figure. Especially the serial number tracking. When I went to research the Metal Gear and the Pokemon boxes, the only extra information I got on that serial number tracking was maybe the date and one other small piece of information, which is pointless. If you're going to hide that stuff behind a password and a username, you need to provide every possible last detail. In fact, a huge step to becoming more respectable to us non-VGA people would be to not charge people for things that should be included in your service, aka the web photos of their product and the actual write-up saying what was wrong and why it got graded to that grade point. That should be all in the serial number tracking log. Like, by example, when I saw the Metal Gear, I should be able to see the serial number and go to your website and type it in and say, okay, cool, there's a crack over here and there's a loose thing over here, but it's, it's fine. That would help immensely. So, that being said, I hope for your own customers and fans' sake, you guys can pull yourself out of your rut, or otherwise it will be disastrous. And that's where we'll leave off at. Once again, thank you everyone. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you're pro, anti, neutral, whatever. These are the conversations we need to be having and exploring and just trying to make our hobby and passion that much better. But yeah, subscribe, reply, tweet, email, whatever. we'll see you next week, guys. Thank you so much.